of us know, business is about cutthroat survival of the fittest. And so when we go into organizations, we're very much competitive and how to be better than the other person. Because we wrongly believe from Darwin, survival of the fittest is how we grow and develop. But we now know the reality was humankind survived by helping each other in small groups. So we better live by survival of the kindest, not survival of the fittest. The research on synchronicity often just gets stuck in, tell me your best story, latest story. And what I'm interested in is synchronicity is a spiritual tool to help us live an abundant life.
Welcome, everyone, to Caritas Consciousness Project. I'm Gloria Coelho, and Caritas is dedicated to promoting the evolution of consciousness as the key to individual growth and global healing. We do this through online presentations and interviews with guest speakers, as well as classes and study groups. We draw from a wide assortment of both ancient wisdom and leading-edge studies in science, consciousness, spirituality, and philosophy. We are in our 20th year, which is very exciting. We started in 2003, but it wasn't until 2020 that we began recording our presentations on Zoom. Our video recordings are viewable through our website, caritascenter.org, and also on our YouTube channel, which is Caritas Consciousness Project. And this is our 100th recording, our 100th recorded presentation. So that's exciting too, kind of a milestone. As a nonprofit organization, we rely on the support of our members and donors to keep our program going. So if you enjoy our presentations and would like to support this program, you can make a donation or become a member by going to our website. And there are benefits to membership, so check it out. And now let me introduce tonight's guest speaker. Philip Mary is a global team and leadership facilitator with over 40 years experience in 63 countries. He specializes in synchronicity and teams, and his book, 9 Keys of Synchronicity, was published in 2022. He's the founder of Singapore's PMCG, and is a master team trainer, has certified over 300 team facilitators, works with leading global MNCs, and is a senior United Nations consultant. British by birth, Philip has been a resident of Singapore since 1990. He loves traveling in nature and is a Huddersfield Town supporter and was at one time a London taxi driver. And you can learn more at www.philipmary.com. Welcome, Philip, and thank you so much for being here tonight with us.
Well, good to be here, and good morning. It's 8 o'clock in Singapore.
Yes.
And the sun is shining. You can see it's just on my head here, so I'll make sure to lean back. So it's my pleasure to share the work of my last 10 years. Synchronicity, that ability that we have to attract to us people or events or things which seem to answer questions that we currently have in our lives. And these have happened to me all of my life, but only in the last 10 years did I really start studying synchronicity. My first synchronicity happened at 9 years old. And I didn't know it was synchronicity. But then they happened to me so often that I said, I've got to go deeper into this and understand this. So I did a PhD in synchronicity. and then wrote the book, The 9 Keys of Synchronicity, which explains a variety of things, but shares a lot of stories that I have about synchronicity, but also goes deep into the theory and what people have said, and comes up with what I think is something unique and new. So, are you all ready for the journey? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, good to see you all. So I'm going to be sharing a presentation that I prepared. Every time I present this stuff, and I've presented it probably 20 times in the last year, people have a different take. So in the presentation I prepared, I've kept to the 4 objectives that you have, that we designed as part of the program. So just bear with me 1 second. All right, can you all see that? Wonderful. So the 9 Keys of Synchronicity is a masterclass that I conduct fairly often now. And the bottom tagline is an important one, because the bottom tagline says what? The bottom tagline says, setting the stage for intentional miracles. And that's what I believe synchronicity is. The ability that all of us have to set the stage for more synchronicities, which behind every synchronicity, I say, is a miracle. The more we understand it, the more we can actually enable miracles to happen through synchronicity. So that's where I'm coming from. A little bit about me. This view that you have here is the view from my balcony here in Singapore. Some of these buildings weren't here 32 years ago when I moved to Singapore, but literally I've been 30 years running my own company as an entrepreneur, 12 years working inside organizations as a leadership and team consultant. And originally in 1972 to 1980, I qualified, certified, and was a marriage and family therapist, which I still do some of that. So enough about me. So here are the agenda that we agreed upon and wrote down. How do you recognize synchronicity? 2, my model of synchronicity, the 9 keys. 3, how do we connect the dots to build a meaningful life? And 4, how do we open doors to possibility? So I'm a structured person, and I've actually built the presentation around those 4 things that we promised that we will deliver for you. And I'm going to pepper my presentation with stories that help illustrate what synchronicity is. So how do we recognize synchronicity? This is the first part of what we're doing. So there I was, November 17th, 1993. It was 3:58 p.m. in the afternoon, and I was doing my monthly budget, as all of us do who run our own companies, right? As I looked at the books, I realized that I needed $15,000 to balance the books for that month. And I said to myself, how the heck do I find $15,000? 2 minutes later, my colleague, Dr. von Strumpenhaus, 10 minutes later, Dr. von Strumpenhaus, an expert in culture from Amsterdam, called me and said, could you go and deliver a program in Beijing next week? We've just been asked by a big American multinational, Motorola, in Beijing to do a cross-cultural seminar, which was a seminar that I did. And I said, I looked at my diary and I said, yes, Fons, I can. The next thing he said was this: you'll be very pleased, Philip. Also, the money is good. It's $15,000. 10 minutes before 4, I need $15,000 to balance my books. 10 minutes later, 4 o'clock, here's $15,000. That's a synchronicity. I had a need, and within 10 minutes, my need was answered very specifically. Make sense? This is a synchronicity. The next story I have is a story from my personal life. I was thinking about moving from my apartment in order to rent out the apartment and make more money, because I'd rent a new place at a lower rate and rent out my apartment so I could make $2,000 a month. And I couldn't decide what to do. Should I move? Should I not move? Should I move? Should I not move? And I was in my car in Northbridge Road in Chinatown here in Singapore, and I stopped at the traffic lights. And I was thinking over this thing. I don't know why I was so worried about to make the decision. I stopped at the traffic lights. I looked to my left, and there was this lorry. Guess what was written on the side of the lorry? Make the move. So literally there and then, I drove to the housing office, got the new apartment, which will be new, and began the process of renting out my apartment. This is synchronicity. So we need, as we're trying to understand synchronicity, to get the definition fairly clear. Synchronicity is where you have a need. You sometimes may not be conscious of that need, but an answer out of the blue will come on which you take action. I like to keep definitions very simple. Although I have a PhD, I could give you complicated definitions, but this is really what it is. As we go through life, we have a need for something, and then in our life, something just comes out of the blue which answers the need that we have. The Free Dictionary says that synchronicity is a coincidence of events that appear meaningfully related but do not seem to be causally connected. And this is very important. Causally connected. There seems to be no logic to explain why this thing appeared to us. Carl Jung, as all of you know, the grandfather, the father of synchronicity, said, this is what a synchrony needs to have. It's a meaningful coincidence. Something comes out of the blue and it's meaningful. It's an acausal, and I'm emphasizing this again, no seeming cause logically for this to happen. And then his more complicated one, a simultaneous occurrence of a certain state with one or two external events which appear as meaningful parallels to the momentary subjective state. So that's a little bit more complicated, but same thing. It literally is synchronicity happens when out of the blue events turn up in our lives and provide answers to issues we are facing. Does that make sense, everybody? Give me a thumbs up. It's very simple in a sense and complicated in another. So what I've been doing over the last 10 years or so is diving deep into this topic for my own benefit, because synchronicities happened to me and I wanted to know what they were about, but also to integrate synchronicity into my work. So for the last 10 years, I've also been introducing synchronicity to my leadership and team seminars. I like this definition also. Hunter says you can call synchronicity, you can call it luck, karma, coincidence, guiding hand, the universe or God, or a guardian angel, or the spirit of your ancestors, or you can simply call it a miracle. And I like this definition, as you can probably imagine as I'm going through it. So what I found, and I'll share my research in the next section, here is what a synchronicity needs to have. I've observed this, and I've studied many synchronicities. Number one, a pre-existing need or desire to find answers to an issue. Now, that can be something you're very conscious of, or something that maybe even you're not so conscious of, but it still exists. Number two, out of the blue is the term that I like to use. Out of the blue in the sense of it just comes your way and you don't know why, but it gives you an answer. I talked already that synchronicity must be acausal, no seeming cause to it happening. It's beneficial. Whatever happens is beneficial. even if the synchronicity says, no, don't do a particular thing, still beneficial. The event is meaningful to the person. And I love this one. There is a sense of awe that happens to you as you say, oh my God, how is that possible? When $15,000 was delivered to me within 10 minutes, I was awestruck. And it really got me thinking, if this can happen, this tells me this is something about the way the world is organized. So that is, how do I recognize synchronicity? Is that clear, folks? All right. And please just say if you have any questions. So what I then want to move on to is we promised when we sent out the objectives on Gloria's website is then, so what are the 9 keys of synchronicity? Because this is new research. Nobody in the world has actually done research like I've done. And it's important, obviously, for this seminar that I share with you that whole development. So synchronicity happened to me so much, and my clients also, it happened to them. I said, I've got to go deeper in this. So at the grand old age of, I think I was 66 or 63, I said, let me do my PhD. I'd been meaning to do my PhD for many years, but never got round to it. So the essence of my PhD is, as you see here, I interviewed 23 global executives to whom synchronicity had happened. And I asked a very simple question: what facilitates synchronicity? From that question, I had 200 pages of data, which I then analyzed using grounded theory methodology. So I don't know if you know, but grounded theory, I'm sure many of you know, is about from the bottom up, looking at data to provide answers to a question, to build a model. And out of that came the 9 keys of synchronicity. Here are the questions I asked the global executives. So what do you think facilitates synchronicity? What is the process by which synchronicity happens? What are the benefits and results? And what is the meaning of synchronicity? So as you can imagine, I had very rich data from then to put together my 9 keys model. As well as interviewing, I read every single book. Here's 1/3, actually 1/4 of my books on synchronicity. There's many written. And as you see this, you will see most of these books are about synchronicity that happens to individuals on a personal basis. There's very little, if anything, written about synchronicity in organizations. The only book in organizations is this one by Jaworski. I don't know if you know this, but Joe Jaworski wrote a book on leadership using synchronicity. His father was the Watergate prosecutor. So Joe Jaworski is a pretty famous guy, his father was. And as well as that, I explored many different domains. So I did the data by interviewing the executives and explored a variety of domains. I'm not going to bore you with all of those domains. And you can find my PhD online if you're interested. But it helps you begin to understand how I then got my synchronicity. And I'm very happy. Here I was at the University of Tilburg. It was a very formal interview that I had for an hour and a half with 6 professors grilling me on what my thesis was all about. I was lucky enough to have David Cooper Ryder, who's the founder of Appreciative Inquiry. He was my supervisor, and I'm still the only person in the world with a grounded theory methodology in synchronicity, a PhD in synchronicity. All right, here is then the book that I wrote. And I was very lucky to have David Cooper Ryder, again, one of the leading scholars in the world, who said some very nice things about synchronicity. About my book, I won't linger there. So let's now, that's the introduction. Let's now look at the model of synchronicity that I developed. From those 200 pages of data through grounded theory analysis, I came up with 9 keys that seem to be the ones that facilitate synchronicity. And I put them into 3 categories. What are the keys that help you discover synchronicity? Because that's where it starts, in your day-to-day life. Once you understand how to attract synchronicity in your day-to-day life, then how do you integrate it? A lot of people have synchronicity happen to them and then say, that's interesting, and then move on with the rest of their life. I wasn't happy with that. When the synchronicities happened to me, like the $15,000, I then said, I want to know how to make this sustainable. So the second set of 3 keys are how to integrate synchronicity. And then the third set, to make it even deeper, were what are the mindsets that can attract synchronicity? Does that make sense? I'm hoping you're with me. Your faces look interested. Karen's nodding her head. Shirley's nodding her head. Very nice to have. I love it that I can see people, because then at least we have some sort of interaction. And Gloria's smiling, so I guess I'm doing okay, Gloria. All right. Are you ready for the big reveal? Here are the 9 keys. Now, I'm still the only person in the world that, in writing about synchronicity and researching synchronicity, there are lots of books about stories and esoteric theories about synchronicity. I'm a very practical guy. I want to know how I can help people attract synchronicity into their lives. I run a business, as we've said already, where I've done work in teams and leadership around the world. And so at the grand old age, I'm 74 at the end of this year. In December, I'll be 74. So I'm at the end of my life. I've still got 20 or 30 years left, I think. I don't know. But I'm now focused on how can I help people attract synchronicity more and more in their lives. So here are the 9 keys in the order that I've said: discover, integrate, and having mindsets that attract. So let's first look at how we discover. And remember, this is based on grounded theory research from 200 pages of data. What it seemed to me that people were saying in terms of attracting synchronicity in the day-to-day was key number 1, be curious about out-of-the-blue events. So I'm sure all of you have a routine during your day. You know, when you wake up, how you clean your teeth, how you get your breakfast, which web pages you first look at, which newspapers you read, which bus you get to work, etc., etc., etc. All of us have fixed routines. And I noticed that what my research participants said was that synchronicity seems to happen when things that are out of the blue and different from your normal routine seem to happen to you. So if, for example, you're catching a train to work, you probably have similar people on the platform when you're catching the train to work or to the shops or wherever it may be. So an out of the blue event would be if suddenly you notice waiting for the train is somebody you've never seen before, and you have this strange prompting to go talk to them. That's out of the routine. So notice those. And when you talk to that individual shares with you information about a problem that you're currently thinking about, key number 2 is connect the dots. Meaning, if the person you suddenly meet on the platform waiting for the train gives you information that actually is related to something in your life, that's about looking at the big picture of your life and connecting the dots. And if what happened in terms of what that person said really you can see would be beneficial, then you act. Key 3 is act on intuition. And I say act. Let's go back to my $15,000. I was busy thinking about how do I balance the books. I could have ignored the phone ringing because I was so focused on how do I find $15,000, I don't want to be disturbed by the phone. But I said to myself, okay, let me answer the phone. because I know strange things that happen when you pick up the phone. And obviously, when I picked up the phone, there was my $15,000. So act on intuition means pick up the phone. Number two, it means say yes to going to Beijing, because I said yes to going to Beijing before I found out that the fee was $15,000. A lot of people in synchronicity, they have intuitions, but don't act on them. And the road to failed synchronicity is having that sense of I must do something, but then doing nothing. So these first three keys of synchronicity, look at what happens in terms of unusual events in your life, connect it to what's going on in the various areas of your life, and then if it seems to provide an answer, act on intuition. Don't think intuition, act on intuition. Make sense? First three keys. I'm going to go through the 9 keys and then maybe take your questions about the 9 keys. We have an hour and a half, right, Gloria?
We have 2 hours.
2 hours, even better, even better. I'm happy to spend 2 hours with you on this Saturday morning in Singapore. So, intuition, by the way, a process by which information normally outside the range of cognitive processes is sensed and perceived in the body. You actually have in the body this sense of, I must do this. This is what I should go to. This is what I should follow up. And it's a certainty. You don't think about it. It's a certain knowing about the thing about to happen. McCratey at the Heart Math Organization said this thing can be a material object, an event, mental construct, or a thought or idea. I'm sure everybody on this call has intuition. Sometimes we follow, sometimes we don't. Oh, to remind you again, intuition is often a precursor to a synchronicity in terms of what you should do or not do. So those are the first 3 keys. And I put those first because I wanted people, even if they only looked at the first 3 keys, to have a sense of practicality of something that they could do as they want to attract more synchronicity. So I could have said, once the $15,000 came to me, oh, that's great news. Now get on with the rest of my life. But I didn't. I said, I want to find out what synchronicity is all about beyond this one occasion, and I want to know how to integrate it into my life. So the 9 keys, keys 4, 5, and 6, were about how do we integrate that. So and remember again, this is data from those executives I interviewed, 200 pages of data. Key number 4 was celebrate, and celebrate awe. Because when synchronicity happens, it's a truly, I would say, spiritual thing, but it's truly an awesome thing, meaning it's promoting that sense of awe. Now, there's lots of research done about awe, and you can see that in my book, but at least it means the sense of the sacred, the sense that something's happening which is out of the blue and unusual. And what my participants said when I interviewed them, that they found that the more they celebrated these incredible things that happen, the more it seemed to attract more synchronicities. If you just said, okay, interesting, not so much, and get on with your life, it seems to block synchronicities happening. So if you have a mindset that says, this is incredible, and researchers call it a sense of numinosity, then it happens. Key number 5, be a servant citizen. Now, what do I mean by this? A lot of the 23 people I interviewed said, it seems that when we're involved in projects which are about serving and helping other people, synchronicity seems to happen more often. Now, I can't put my hand on my heart and says, so if you start helping other people, synchronicities are going to come. All I'm sharing with you is the data from the people I interviewed that says, on balance, the more I was helping other people, the more synchronicities seem to come, which to me is an interesting thing. I'm sure you've all heard of servant leadership, so I just adapted that and said, be a servant citizen. Because as you go around the world, I'll talk about this later, but synchronicity celebrates the fact that all of humanity is one. I'm sure you've all heard of we are all one. And so I am very interested in this sense that we're not separate, we're all connected. And therefore, by serving humanity as a servant citizen, that helps a great deal. Key number 6, set intention. So very often synchronicities happen and they come out of the blue. You weren't doing much, you just attracted them to you. Key number 6 especially is about being conscious with your creation of synchronicity. So setting the intention of what you want is absolutely important. Because if you don't set the intention, you can't set in motion the energetic vibration which causes it to happen. And you need both your heart and your brain. And you need both heart and brain to be in coherence. So what are we talking about when we say heart intelligence? I don't know if you know the wonderful organization called the Heart Math Organization. Anybody know Heart Math? If you want some of the best research in this field, go to Heart Math. They've got lots of white papers. It's based just out of San Francisco. I've known them for 23 years, and I'm a certified Heart Math facilitator. And so what they found is that when the heart and the brain are in coherence, and they have methodologies for getting into coherence, number one, you access heart intelligence, which brings the brain and the body together. Number two, you access deep intuition. And what they found is you can sense the future. They have an experiment which they did, which showed that the heart can sense what's about to happen 6 seconds before it happens. And the heart senses it before the brain. All of the heart math research is about saying the heart informs the brain and not the other way around. We thought always that the brain was where we first started. Heart math research says no. So this is real important focus. So intention is having a clear intent. You write that down and you make it very precise of what it is that you want. I've done some fun experiments over the years with people searching for a new partner. When they tell me they want to search for a new partner, I tell them to write down all of the qualities they want from the new partner and then sit back and see what happens. Watch their environment, watch their life, and see who turns up. I did it with one friend of mine, and after 2 weeks, she came and said, I got him. He's attracted. He's come to me. He's my perfect guy. And literally, by writing down all the qualities she wanted, within 2 weeks, this person had come her way. But then she said, Philip, the only thing that is the problem, he smokes. I don't like smokers. So I said, can you show me your list? She showed me the list, and I said, you didn't write down there, must be a non-smoker. So we laughed about that, but everything else was fine, and they're married and happy together. Once you got the clear intent, logically with the words, then you feel in your heart the feeling that you have when you make this happen. So these two things, clear intent and strong emotion, are two of the most powerful tools, simple tools, you can see. I don't like complicated stuff, simple tools that help attract to you what it is that you want. So there, 3 keys to discover synchronicity, 3 keys to integrate synchronicity in the blue circles. Now let's move on to the last 3. 3 keys which are about mindset. What I noticed, key number 7, is that people can have a strong intent but not be successful in attracting to them that which they want because their underlying mindset is negative. Let me share with you a guy I was working with. I do a lot of coaching, leadership coaching, and this guy was wanting to have me help him with his career. Now, he was a world expert in crisis recovery, but he wanted to move to a more senior level with a big international organization. And he said, every job that I apply for, I'm not successful. And he applied for a job when I was coaching him and he didn't get it. And then he said to me, yeah, it's typical. I'm never successful at anything that I do. I'm just not a successful person. I said to him, when did you first learn this phrase, I'm not a successful person? He said, very simple. When I was 6 years old, my older brother was a lot more successful than me, and my mum told me so. My mum said, you know, your brother is the most successful, the smarter one. You're okay, but you'll never be as smart as your brother or as successful as your brother. Imagine saying that to a 6-year-old. Now, for the mother, I'm sure she was a good mother, but it was a throwaway line. But it was something that he carried around with him for the rest of his life. So you can have all of these keys, you can notice it coming for you, you can integrate it into your life, but if you have an underlying mindset that says, I will never be successful, then how are you going to attract synchronicity to you? So living hope and possibility as a mindset is really, really important. All of us, me included, have messages that we got from our important people in our lives that's embedded in our brains that actually work against us. So you can use the words in key number 6 to set the intention and repeat it and write it down in front of you. But if you have an underlying mindset that says, I'll never be successful, guess what? That will work against your intention. So I work a lot with helping people discover which are the mindsets working against them that they've picked up from various people in their lives. And very often they pick them up from their closest and intimate friends. I have many, many times people who tell me words that they were told by their teacher. My teacher said to me when I was 10 years old, you're never going to be any good at mathematics. And guess what? I'm not good at mathematics. So I'm still living what that teacher said to me. All right, key number 7. Key number 8 is crucial. Live and merge with the present moment. I'll say more about this later, but if you believe that we are energy and that we connect with energy that's in the world, it means that all of the answers that you need are there in the present moment. And you can find them by looking around you. And people often tell me as I coach them in synchronicity that suddenly they can see something in their life which is the answer to what they want, and it was always there, they just never noticed it before. So when you become fully present in the present moment, that's where synchronicity lives. And when you become fully present, your intuition is enhanced, your awareness is enhanced, your ability to sense what's around you is enhanced. And then finally, key number 9, connect with source. Now, obviously, there's many, many religious beliefs and sayings and philosophies that are about when you connect with the source from a religious perspective. If you have a faith, a Christian, a Buddhist, a Muslim, a Hindu, whatever your faith is, I'm sure within your faith there is some teaching about how to connect with a source that will provide you what it is that you want. I was brought up in a Christian household, and obviously Holy Spirit is the moving energy within the world that answers prayer. So I was very careful, obviously, because I want this model to be used by any person, whatever faith is. So instead of connecting with whatever your religion says, I call it connect with source. That helps that happen. Okay, I'm going to pause now for questions because I've just given you a whole range of stuff, which is, again, it's a unique model. Nobody else in the world has this. So let me just come off. Sharing for a while. Any questions, folks, with what I've shared with you already? I'm so glad we've got 2 hours, Gloria. Most of my podcasts only give me an hour or so. 2 hours gives us a lot of good time. So any clarities that you need from the 9 keys? Any questions so far?
Any questions? Shirley.
Yes, I would like to ask you how you determined what businesses that you did for your research.
Which businesses?
When you started your research, you said you decided on, I don't know whether they're businesses or companies or whatever.
They're executives, individual executives.
Executives. How did you choose them?
Well, that's a very good question, Shirley, because accepted wisdom is that you do a massive analysis of the types of people that you want to actually attract to you. And my supervisor said, I would like you to use synchronicity to attract to you the individuals with whom you're going to do your grounded research. He said, because if you're trying to analyze and discuss synchronicity, then why don't you use synchronicity itself to choose people? So very literally, Shirley, at the time, I was just about to begin a 4-week trip in the United States. I took my wife and my mother-in-law with me. So I had 4 sessions. I was doing training or speaking, but I was also doing a road trip from San Francisco across to Denver, across to New York, up to the Niagara Falls, and then to Chicago. So in that whole 4-week trip, I was consciously looking for people with whom to do the research. And you'll see that in the book is described. So literally, as I was meeting people, I was doing business seminars in different places, I would actually have my intuition, my intuitive senses for who I should actually interview. And there were some people who seemed absolutely right, but I said, no, this doesn't feel right. Does that answer, Shirley? So that's basically how I did it. I mean, there were some other people that I just knew were doing synchronicity. So I just attracted or chose them based on my own intuition and synchronicity. And that's clearly set out, because obviously the normal procedure for a PhD research is you do big analysis and you send out questionnaires, etc., etc. So I chose through synchronicity.
Alain has a question.
Does that answer your question, Shirley?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry, Gloria.
Okay, Alain has a question.
Yes, I'm familiar.
Alain, hi, Alain.
Alain, yeah. I'm.
I love the map behind you. Where's the map behind you? What place is that?
It's Cascadia. I live in Portland, Oregon, and so
Okay,
Cascadia, which extends all the way to Alaska. It's
cool. I was in Portland to do my Joe Dispenza training.
Wow, great.
So I go. Okay, sorry, Alain. Your question is?
My question is, I'm familiar with the HeartMath research.
Okay.
Visited HeartMath at one time, and then I've become aware of what Ian McGilchrist has written about the left hemisphere, right hemisphere that we all have, as of course,
Right.
but we not necessarily use in a balanced way. And
Yeah.
my sense is that intuition and connecting with the whole from what I understand from Ian, comes from the right brain. So
Yeah.
people who are very much in a very analytical mode most of the time,
Yeah.
and try and separate things to go and do some things, have less of a chance to open up to the connections that exist. So yes, it's the heart, but it's also the right brain and the right hemisphere and the whole body. So I was wondering whether in your research, you've identified that it's, yes, the heart plays a key role, but it's not just it's not physically the heart only. It extends to a certain way of living in reality that is more holistic and less analytic and divisive.
It's a great question, Alain. I will touch more of this in section 3, the next section, or section 4. But yes, I think you're absolutely right. And it's to do with all of us in all the different domains and ways of thinking are influenced by Newtonian philosophy.
Very much.
And I'll say much about that in the 4th section when I come to it. But yes, we have a way of saying the brain is dominant, logic is dominant, and we forget that the brain has a left and a right side. Now, there are some people who dispute the left and right brain philosophy, but I'm trained in the Herman brain dominance methodology, and I teach that. So right brain is relationship, left brain is logic. That's how I remember them. Left is logic, right is relationship. And so if we are used to using logic all of the time, meaning using the left side of our brain, we will often miss the intuitive possibilities that life has to offer. And what I'm trying to do, it's a great question, Alain. What I'm trying to do with my 9 keys, particularly key 7, 8, and 9, is to activate the right brain. Because when you live in hope and possibility, when you live in the present moment, when you connect with source, you're living in the right brain. Let me say, however, though, Alan, what I don't like is people in the New Age philosophy way of looking at the world will say, follow your heart.
Yeah.
I will say, nonsense. God gave us a brain, God gave us a heart for both of them to be used. Now, we are in an age where, yes, we need to use more of the heart than we have done, but never say no to the brain. Because the brain can often tell you, and in my life, very often, the brain says to my heart, you're wrong, we're not going to do that. And I think you're absolutely right. We need to shift more in this age to listening to the heart, but don't throw out the brain either, because we need logic too. Great question, Alain.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? I love these questions. Karen. You're on mute, Karen.
It was just a quick clarification, Mr. Merry. You mentioned just a moment.
Philip, call me Philip.
Philip, you just mentioned a moment ago you were trained in the something. I was trying to write it down. What were you trained in?
Are you from the UK, Karen? Right?
London. I hail London. It's so exciting.
Where are you now? Where are you now?
Very boring. I live in boring Hendon. It's a little place called Hendon, the northwest London.
Listen, Karen. I used to work for the London Borough of Brent.
Oh no!
As a leadership trainer, and I lived in Wembley.
Oh right. Oh so. Right.
So I know Hendon very well. So
I don't feel so bad now about not living in.
No, it's a great. I love London. One of my favourite places.
Oh really? Oh.
The person I mentioned, I'm certified in heart math.
Yes, but what was the person?
And I'm also certified in Joe Dispenza.
Joe Dispenza, right?
Dispenza.
See, could you say so? Sorry, could you spell that again? Sorry. Dispenza.
Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Dr. Joe Dispenza. Okay. And I just got a quick question. Well, not so quick.
Sure.
Maybe. How do you talk about intentions, having the clear intentions.
Yeah.
And then you talked about negative underlying mindset, which I personally identify with that. Have you got any how do you avoid how can you do you have any advice, or how do you avoid that negative underlying mindset completely? Sorry, it's like the age old, please, doctor, can you help me? How do you avoid that from just completely completely chucking all your throwing all your intentions,
Karen,
rubbishing your intentions and just saying,
I have a very simple answer, Karen.
What the hell are you doing? You're no good and all that.
I have a very simple answer, Karen. Be aware what your negative mindset is. Number one. Number two, stop doing it. Now that can happen overnight. But it also takes a long time. So the person I'm coaching, who thought he would never be successful, he had to identify first where it came from. And he found it came from his mother, who he loved very much, but unfortunately parents screw up their kids sometimes. All of us, everybody on this call, including me, has had times when your parents screwed up your life with a mindset. So once you've identified what the mindset is, for him it was, I'll never be successful. Find the opposite of that. So for him, it was a very simple thing to say, I am a smart, intelligent executive who is successful on whatever I put my mind to. And literally what you're doing, in your brain lives the neural pathway that says, I'm not successful. You've got to stop feeding that mindset. So when you're aware of coming into a situation, as this guy was, every interview he went to was playing in his mind, I'm not successful, I'm not successful, I'm not successful. Stop doing that and begin to flood your mind with the opposite. Does that make sense, Karen?
Thank you. And by the way, I love now you've given me hope with the idea of doing the PhD at 66. Oh, I feel so relieved now, because I feel like time is such a big thing, I don't feel so.
I registered for my PhD in 1992.
Oh my God.
I just got busy with the work and never did it.
Yeah.
So yes, I said, okay, I finally found in Synchronicity a PhD I want to do.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud to say, I'm 74 this year.
Wow.
I don't feel 74. I feel like I'm 16. I feel one day I might grow up, but not too soon. So Karen, we underestimate in our life, in the world, when you're in your 60s or 70s, that's when you have most to contribute. Because you've had a lifetime of thinking and working and wisdom to share. That's the time when you need to do your PhD.
Okay, lovely. Right, I feel a bit more relaxed now. I feel a bit more. Thank you.
I've got Shirley.
Well, I just want to make a comment about things that people say that influence your life. And when I was in high school, one of my teachers said, you're not even going to get into college, let alone through it. And I have a PhD and would like to go back and show her that. And I'm 91. So.
Wow, you're 91?
Yes.
You look nowhere near 91, Shirley.
Thank you. I don't feel it either.
You don't look it. Wonderful. What a great. I'm still just bathing in awe at Shirley being 91.
Yeah, it's true.
Literally, these are the miracles in life that we celebrate. I love it that you're so young, Shirley.
Hi.
What's your question, Edna?
Okay. Yeah, it's a situation I'm dealing with right now. I'm trying to find a renter for a space in my house.
Okay.
And I've been trying to attract traveling nurses because they're like decent people and they only stay 3 months. But actually I've been trying for about a month now. and I've had no success, and I don't think I have any negative mindset about it. I don't think so, but I'm trying to tell myself, okay, maybe the universe has a higher good in store for me, and I just don't know what it is. And so like I tend to be getting really upset about the rental thing, but I'm trying to tell myself, like, I actually maybe am not asking for the right thing. And so what do you think about that?
You got to get rid of a lot of those words you just used.
Okay.
It could be that there is a better purpose than rental.
Yes.
So sometimes I encourage people, when the answers don't come to them, make your question or your intention more general.
Oh, okay.
Instead of
Okay.
saying, I want to rent this out to nurses, why aren't they coming my way? Start saying to yourself, I'm looking for the highest good for use of my house.
Uh-huh.
And
Okay,
then
I like that.
then let it go. It seems
Okay.
like you're so intent on, I want to rent it out to nurses. And when the nurses are not coming, you're then saying, oh, I'm doing this wrong. Or the universe doesn't like me, or God doesn't like me, and I'm never successful at renting out.
Oh, I don't
Get
say
rid.
that.
Well, no, you just did. You just said earlier, you said, I'm not successful at
Oh,
renting.
okay.
So you got to
Okay.
get rid of anything that's negative in your thought form.
Okay.
But I'd actually replace your intention with, please guide me on the highest good for my house in terms of how it can be used.
Okay, I like that.
And then see what happens.
Okay, I'll let you know.
All right, love it.
Okay.
I'm loving this conversation, Gloria, because we can share with each other and talk with each other. And I'm enjoying this very much already. Shall I move on now?
Sure.
Okay. So let me go back to sharing my screen. So what we've done already, number one, how to recognize synchronicity. And I gave you my story of the $15,000. I shared with you my 9 keys model. And if you go to my website, philipmerry.com, you will find the first chapter of the book and a lot more material. So you can actually find out more. But now let's look at the next part of what Gloria and I prepared for you, which was how do we connect the dots? And that's specifically around how do we live a meaningful life? Because obviously you can use synchronicity to get parking spaces or to get nurses to come and live in your house, Edna. But I think also synchronicity is an indication of something much deeper, and I would say more spiritual. So this next section, 2 more sections to go, is to actually focus a little bit more on that. So I'm going to share stories that will help a little bit with this. So I'm from England, but I've been living in Singapore since 1990. And as you know already, I work with leaders and with teams in big corporations and in government bodies. And in 2008, I noticed that there was a lot of stress around with leaders. And so I said, let me organize a happiness conference. So I began to think about, how do I put together Asia's first happiness conference? And I talked to a friend of mine, and she said, if you're going to do a happiness conference, you need to have Martin Seligman be the keynote speaker. Now, you all know who Martin Seligman is, right? If you don't, he is the #1 happiness guy in the world. He was formerly president of American Psychological Association, and he literally, with 1 or 2 others, founded positive psychology. But here I was in Singapore, and my question was, how do I find Martin Seligman? Now, I wasn't doing a synchronicity intention. I was just saying to myself, I think I should run this conference, but how do I find Martin Seligman? The following day, I was talking to a client from Australia, met in my office here down the road, and I shared with him my desire to run Asia's first happiness conference, but said I'm stuck because I want to find Martin Seligman. The guy reached into his briefcase, pulled out his diary, which is a physical diary. You remember the times we did physical diaries? He reached into it and he wrote down on a piece of paper and then handed me that piece of paper and said, here is the personal contacts for Martin Seligman. He was working with us last week in my organization in Australia. Now again, think about this. I want to help leaders in Asia by organizing the first happiness conference, but I need Martin Seligman. I don't know how to find him. One day later, here's Martin Seligman's personal contacts. Contacted Martin Seligman, and we ran a very successful conference. Here's me with Martin. There's Martin Seligman there. Here is a minister from Singapore. This is a younger looking me. Here's me appearing on TV. And here's the conference. Martin not only came along himself, he brought all of his experts in synchronicity, in happiness. Synchronicity, right? Next one, next story. There I was, having coffee with my financial advisor in a Singapore shopping mall. And as we met each other, I said, Cliff, how are you doing? He said, I'm doing fine. I said, you know, I recently had a dream that I was a freedom fighter. You know, we're doing that chit chat before we got down to business. He said, I had a dream the other night. I was a freedom fighter. Oh, okay. And then I said, oh, and by the way, last week was my 66th birthday. That's all I said to him in the first 5 minutes. Immediately after I said this to him, I turned my head to the left. This is what I saw. The man was walking past me with a t-shirt which actually repeated what I just said. This is one of the most amazing synchronicities ever happened to me. I grabbed my phone, I ran after this guy. I didn't talk to him at all. I just took a photograph of the back of his t-shirt. Now, is this a synchronicity? Yes, it is. And what it's illustrative of is questions that I had in my mind at that time. I just submitted my dissertation for marking, and so on top of my mind was, will my dissertation be successful? And then secondly, I was working on how can I introduce synchronicity into my work with teams and leaders. That's what the synchronicity meant. Let me share with you how. In Chinese, 6 means luck. So 6 means luck, luck. So as I thought about it, the interpretation for me was that my dissertation was going to be successful. And it was. The other thing, remember I said what I was focused on? I was focused on how does synchronicity fit into my work? And I began to realize, so I'd had a dream about being a freedom fighter. I'd then seen this t-shirt. So when something appears to you, it's like a confirmation of the thought that you are having. So I realized that my role with leaders was like a freedom fighter. Now, why do I say that? The response I had from a lot of leaders that I talked to was, yes, I use intuition and synchronicity in my work. Please don't tell my boss. They were constrained, Elaine, in a way that you would know, they're constrained by a mindset which is just logical. And they didn't like to use intuition and synchronicity and tell their boss about it because their boss would think they were not credible. Okay, does that make sense? So what are we talking about in this section? We're talking about connecting the dots and building a meaningful life. Synchronicity will often come to you with guidance. The first Martin Seligman Happiness Conference was about, you should run this conference. You don't know where Martin Seligman is. I'm providing Martin Seligman for you. This energy or this force. The second one, the 66 Freedom Fighter, it really confirmed my sense of meaningfulness around my PhD and around my synchronicity focus. Because ever since then, I've constantly had this sense of my role is a freedom fighter to release people from the paradigm that says logic only is the way that you can actually judge your success. Make sense? So we've looked at synchronicity and how to recognize it. We've looked at 9 keys model. I've told you a little bit about meaningfulness. Let's now move to the final question, and then that will give us lots of times for further discussion. Open the doors to possibility that are all around you, hidden in plain view. Fundamentally, my belief that there is an energy in the world that we can connect with that helps us look at our environment in a different way and with different eyes. We think when we go into a room, and even now on this call, we think that we are separate individuals on a Zoom call. When you look at us energetically, this is what we look like. A mass of energy that is connected. And I always kind of laugh that I just chose this randomly, but I kind of laugh that, look down here. There is an S and there is another S. And I only found this after I chose the image. To me, that stands for synchronicity. What do I mean by this? And I mentioned this a little bit to Alain earlier. All of us are constrained by this guy. This guy was Isaac Newton, a wonderful scientist who 300 years ago basically said, human beings are separate from each other, and between us is empty space. And from that developed a whole range of beliefs about logic, about linear way of thinking, and about the fact that we are separate from each other. Here are some of the, and you'll find this in my book, I'm not going to go through all of it, but Newtonian way of thinking is that matter, meaning physical matter like us, we are separate from each other. Quantum physics said matter is entangled. Now, this literally means that every one of us on this call is energetically entangled even before we came on this call. So no wonder I'm inspired by Shirley's 91 years old. No wonder Karen lives in Hendon, where I used to live. If you begin to look at the world from the quantum physics perspective, it is amazing what you begin with. What I love especially, humans are vibrating energy. Whereas Newton said humans are physical matter. If we are vibrating energy, balls of energy, which quantum physics says we are, and by the way, all of scientists now take the quantum physics model as the accurate model on how the world is organized. Which means that in our physical bodies is only 0.1% of who we are. The reality of who we are is we are all energetic waves of energy. Now, it's tough to take in, and I still marvel at what this actually means, but go Google quantum entanglement. You'll be amazed at what you see, and it calls for a totally different way on how we see our lives and how we see reality. Because if we are entangled and if we are vibrating energy, then that means a lot of the answers to the questions we have in our lives, even, Edna, how to rent out your room, the answers are there, waiting for us to discover them. Just to re-emphasize this, Newtonian physics says we are separate. We are matter and we are separate. Quantum physics says humans are 99% vibrating waves of energy and are entangled with each other. I can't spend a lot of time on this, but the implications of this are enormous. Quantum physics was discovered 100 years ago. We're only now just beginning to really apply it in terms of how we actually live our lives. Dean Radin, we can get glimpses of information about other people's minds because at some level, our mind-brain is already coexistent with other people's minds, distant objects, and everything else. Now, ancient religions say we are one. Quantum physics is now catching up with that and says, yes, we are all energetically connected. So when you want to attract synchronicity to you, believing and knowing that we are all connected to everything else in the universe really is the bedrock of how to actually make that happen. And that's why I'm a freedom fighter. I do classes for individuals, but I'm increasingly doing classes for teams. Why? Because leaders and teams in organizations are imprisoned in the Newtonian mindset, which says, please don't tell my boss. Research in Australia, successful repeat entrepreneurs demonstrate accurate foreknowledge of the future. So we have this ability to actually connect with the future. Remember the HeartMath research. And Joe Jaworski, you remember his father was the Watergate prosecutor. Joe Jaworski's wonderful book on synchronicity. And this guides me now in all the work that I do. The leader's role and the team's role is to set the stage on which miracles, synchronistic in nature, can and do occur. Now think about that for you as individuals. You are involved, and you're on this call, so clearly you are involved, in making your life a stage on which synchronistic miracles can happen. That's your purpose. Your purpose, Edna, clearly you need some money for renting out your apartment, but your purpose is to find the real miracle of the use of your accommodation. Now, it may be to earn money, but maybe there's also something else that's there. But if you began to live like this, folks, in the sense of saying, we have this incredible thing called synchronicity, which is our ability to attract to us that which we desire. So Karen, start thinking about where you're going to do your PhD. Get clear on your question first, Karen, by the way, and then say, what's the best university for me to do this PhD research I need to do? And if you ever want help on that, Karen, please write to me. I'll be very comfortable to help you think that through. My email is going to come later. What does this mean for me? There was a time a few years ago when I said, in my seminars, it's best if I do my seminars in a natural setting, because somehow people are more comfortable to explore the right side of their brain, Alain, if they are in a natural setting. I said that on Monday. Wednesday, I was contacted by a South African bank who said, Philip, you don't know us, but we'd like you to come and do a session called Leadership and Fly Fishing. Now, Monday, I'd said I'd like to do more seminars in the outdoor setting. 2 days later, a bank I didn't know about asked me to do a leadership seminar on leadership and fly fishing in a forest and lake near to Johannesburg. That's me doing fly fishing on the right-hand side. I was also asked to go to Bhutan. I told you I worked in 63 countries. One of the most beautiful places to run seminars is Bhutan. And I've been to Bhutan 6 times. This is Danish aid, government of Denmark. They asked me to do a seminar to work with their team in Bhutan. And we actually ran the seminar on the bank of this river. Remember, 2 days before, I need to do more seminars in the outdoors. Somebody somewhere was listening. The opportunities were always there, but I'd never intended before. But when I intended, they came my way. So what are we saying here? And please take snapshots of this if you want to. In terms of attracting synchronicity to you, be clear on your question and be precise in your words. Remember my friend who attracted a smoker, but she married him anyway. Pay attention to anything new that comes during your day. Reflect on anything that captures your attention, but listen to your intuition. 5, head and heart intention, and obviously monitor the results. What I've also done in my research is begin to redefine synchronicity. Carl Jung said, synchronicity is the simultaneous occurrence of an internal state with one or more external events which are meaningful parallels to the momentary subjective state. I think it's time we expand this definition. And as far as I know, I'm the only person in the world that suggested this expansion. Here's what I think we should expand the meaning to. We should say synchronicity is about. Synchronicity happens when events, people, and information appear out of the blue and provide meaningful, non-causal guidance on current issues. That's what's already said, but I think we need to go further. Leaving us with a feeling of gratitude and awe at being connected to a source outside of ourselves which seems to have our back. And I'm very strongly pushing this forward as a new definition of synchronicity. So yes, the first paragraph, which is there, is very important. Don't get me wrong, this is important. But this addition helps in the sense of saying it leaves us with a sense of awe, and that sense of awe says, if synchronicity is true, and there are so many stories, not just mine, that says, yes, it is true, then it means that somewhere, somehow, there is an energy in the world that has our back, that provides stuff to us that will help us. So Karen, your university is out there waiting for your PhD. Edna, the use of your accommodation is already out there waiting for you to see it. Let me finish before we have more questions. What did Steve Jobs see? Steve Jobs, great leader in the world. 5th of October 2011 was the day that Steve Jobs died. Before passing, he looked at his sister Patty, and then for a long time at his children, then at his life's partner, Lorene, and then over their shoulders, past them. He looked past them. And his final words before dying were, wow, oh wow, oh wow. Now, this is reported by his sister, who was there at the scene. So it means at the point of death, Steve Jobs looked beyond his loved ones and saw something which made him say, wow, wow, wow. You don't say that when you're afraid. What I think Steve Jobs was looking at and seeing was the quantum field with which to connect. Another story that helps you think about this. 16th of November 2015. Now, the precursor to this is that I used to appear on Singapore TV, helping them with a program called Views on the News. So literally you turn up at 6 in the morning, they give you some current affairs questions, and then at 7 o'clock, live on TV, broadcasting to the whole of Southeast Asia, my answers to questions on the news. So they say things to me like, so Philip, who is a bigger threat to world peace, Putin or Obama? And I'd have fun trying to think of answers to this. So that's the background. So there I was on 16th of November, getting ready to go to appear on the TV at 5 in the morning. I looked at my phone, and my phone had a message saying, message from your dad. Now, this came to me from Tiffany, who is a psychic, professional psychic in the States. And she said, Dad, your dad has been bothering me for a while to get this message to you. Now, what's unusual about this? My dad had died 1 year before. So I look at this and think, what the heck? How is this possible? My dad's dead. But here's Tiffany saying, your dad's been bothering me. Here was the message that Dad had given to her. I am doing very well. I'm very happy. I see what you are doing. I'm very proud of you, son. I see you think of me often. Please know I am doing good and I'm very happy. I dance a lot. Now look at this next in yellow. I am so happy to see you on the television box. You are going to be doing this more and more and helping people more too. I am so proud of you. Please know I see you and I am with you. When you feel or think you are feeling me, you are. Now think about this. The words that validate that this is authentic are the words television box. Does anybody, maybe Shirley, you call it television box. You're older than me, but my parents' generation called it the television box because to them it was a box. Nobody uses that phrase these days. So this phrase made me feel that this is an authentic message. And the other authenticity about it, it had been arranged, God knows how, that I receive this message 1 hour before I go to appear on TV. And what does it say? It says that wherever my dad was, he knew what I was doing and he could see me. And I've had so many people, when I share this story, say to me, I shared it actually last Saturday in a class that I was doing, masterclass on synchronicity. 2 people in that audience had just lost their mother. And this story gave them such hope in terms of death is not the end. We're energetically connected to our loved ones beyond death. And this story kind of confirms that. So I love this woodcut, the Flammarion woodcut. And it's a guy who obviously all of this stuff here is the everyday world. But he's actually staring into another world. And so as I move to a close before we have more questions, what I want to share with you is that, yes, we're in everyday reality, but synchronicity is a tool that takes us into another reality. Heaven, eternity, the quantum field, the Akashic field, whatever you want to call it. Most of us live our lives here, but most of us on this call, I'm sure, are looking for more, in the sense of what else exists that we're only just slightly aware of. So the 9 Keys of Synchronicity, I did this research and did the book, obviously to be commercially successful. But more than that, the next 20 years of my life, as I try and catch up with you, Shirley, is that I want to spend my time introducing this work to people like yourselves to help you begin to think about synchronicity is a gateway to possibility, and that using the 9 keys will actually help you in terms of more meaning, more miracles, and more magic in your life, to be able to live a more authentic life. Synchronicity is all around us, hidden in plain view. I mean, when you begin to look at the world through the eyes of synchronicity, you see things that before you didn't see, because you have new eyes. So my final message to you, behind every synchronicity is a miracle waiting to happen in your life. Please go and write to me if you want to, Karen. If you want me to talk to me about your PhD, very happy to help. Go to my website, www.philipmerry.com. You'll see there's a description of my research and the book. So here endeth my presentation, Gloria. So I'm going to pass over to you. You had questions you wanted to ask me, and it's great. We've got another half an hour. No need to stay all of that time, but we've got another half an hour to discuss. So very happy to take questions.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you, because I love the story, was could you tell the story about your interaction with John Denver?
Okay. Somehow it's interesting. I very rarely leave that out, Shirley, but I did this time. So there I was in 1994, I think it was, deciding on whether I wanted to get married or not. I had a beautiful woman in my life, but I couldn't quite make up whether I wanted to get married or not. So I attended a seminar conducted by a major organization on personal growth and development. And in that seminar, they played the songs of John Denver, not just Country Roads Take Me Home. We all know that song, but John Denver has some deep relationship, love, and spiritual songs. And they moved me to tears, and they moved me by the end of the seminar to be absolutely clear. I wanted to ask this gorgeous woman to marry me. I don't know what it was. I began the seminar not sure. I ended the seminar because of John Denver saying, yes, she's the one. I want to ask her to marry me. Now, on the Friday evening, I said to myself, I'd like to say thank you to John Denver. How do I do that? I just write a message or a mail to America, John Denver? I didn't know how to contact him. On the Saturday morning, I opened the newspaper here in Singapore. Guess what it said? John Denver in Singapore next week. Wow. I called a friend of mine who'd been on the seminar, and I told her the story. And she must have told a friend of hers, because in the afternoon, somebody called me, Naomi, her name, and she said, Philip, you don't know me, but I hear you'd like to get hold of John Denver. I said, yeah, I would. I explained to her a little bit about the story. She said, well, send me a fax and I'll see what I can do. She told me later she had the fax in her hand. And she said to herself, how do I find John Denver? She said at that moment she was standing next to the lift. The lift opened, there was John Denver. She said, Mr. Denver, I have a message for you from one of your fans. Sunday, John Denver called me at home. Wow. Friday evening, I'd like to say thank you to John Denver. 48 hours later, John Denver called me. You see why I believe in synchronicity? And obviously, on the Monday, I took action. Remember, intuition is the third key, but you got to take action. And she said yes. And here's my gorgeous wife, to whom I'm still happily married. Do you have a question about that story, Gloria?
I'm curious as to what he said to you.
The interesting thing, Gloria, was that I wasn't at home.
Oh, you didn't talk to him?
Therefore, he left a message on my answer phone.
Ah,
His first words I remember were, "Hi, Philip, John Denver here. I'm glad my songs work for you."
uh-huh.
That he said a variety of nice things and why he enjoyed being in Singapore. So it's just a very, but again, it's, you see why I believe in synchronicity and why I follow it. This stuff has happened to me and continues to happen to me and to many other people. But what I think I'm one of the first people to actually do a structure of how you can begin to have this come to you.
Yes.
Any more questions, Alain?
Yes, I just want to report that I really like especially, I mean, I like the whole thing, but what touched me most is the mindset are the last three, and particularly connect with source. And I'm 83 myself, and I decided that this year was going to be the most transformative year of my life. And I'm just following the footsteps of another person, a spiritual teacher who declared the same thing.
Okay.
And I've noticed that as I launch this new program with some co-leaders, it's for elders, we just call it regenerative elder process, that I have more and more synchronicities have come my way. I've never done, I mean, this is voluntary work. It's not for money.
Okay.
But it's something that is very dear to my heart because it is part of my own transformation to do that work.
Okay.
And so I'm wondering whether to want to be of service in a way that you've never been before. And you mentioned elders can do that with their life, with their time, sometimes with their resources. Whether that increases the possibilities of synchronicity. The more you are in service of something larger, yourself or the company you work for, or something like this. Is there, from your research, your observations, and many people you've talked to, is the likelihood of synchronicities higher?
Well, there's one key, Alain. Which key answers your question?
Well, I think the connecting with source.
No, more than that. Which key answers your question?
Oh, the intention, maybe.
No.
Celebrating awe. Celebrating awe.
No.
Be a certain citizen.
I can give you the answer, Alan, but
I'm looking. I noted them.
Okay.
Merge with the present moment. No, it's be a servant citizen.
Yes.
Number 5. Yes.
So
correct.
serve. I'm going here. There you go.
Be a servant citizen. Yeah.
Be a servant citizen.
Yeah.
Again, all of my research, you can never say about this, it's 100% correct.
No.
All I can share with you is this is grounded theory research on what people said are the key causes of synchronicity happening.
Of course.
So clearly, what you're talking about is servant leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So all we can say is that from the different people that I interviewed, they said to me, there's something about synchronicity that when you are serving other people or a bigger cause than yourself, and by the way, Ellen, you're not wrong with key number 9, source is there too. Yeah. But key number 5 says there's something about serving other people that puts you at a different level. Mm-hmm. And if they said more synchronicities happen when we are serving other people, then all that we can say about that is if we believe that there's an energetic force in the universe, a source, energetic source, somehow connecting with that energetic source to serve others will actually accelerate the synchronicities that are coming your way. Doesn't mean that you cannot want a PhD. Doesn't mean that you cannot want more money for renting out your apartment, Edna. But it means that somehow when you're serving others, somehow that turns on the synchronicity tap.
Mhm.
So, Alan, I think that the project that you're involved in with elders
Mhm.
obviously is about serving others and serving the planet.
Yes.
So there's potentially look out for more synchronicities happening around
Yes.
that topic.
Yeah. And
There's also been a lot of research done on what they call the helper's high.
Yeah.
Which is
The helpers what?
the helper's high. It's how you feel when you help someone. You feel high. You feel
Oh,
good.
hi. I thought you said Thai.
No, high. The
Okay,
helper's
right.
high. It is the ironic thing is that when we help others in a
Yeah.
true spirit of generosity, we benefit as much as those whom we're helping.
Yeah, for sure.
The Jesuit priest Anthony de Mello said, charity is really self-interest masquerading under the form of altruism. I give myself pleasure of pleasing others. I give myself the pleasure of pleasing others.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And the addition to that, Gloria, is if humankind truly is one,
Mhm.
then by helping others, you're helping yourself.
Exactly.
Interesting
And-
thing,
and-
Alan,
yeah.
if you ever get my book, Alan, if you look at the chapter on celebrate awe, and anyway, don't even just look at that. There is some great research done on what awe does to the human system.
Yeah.
They've done some research which shows that when they exposed a group of people to the redwood forest, it actually resulted in changes in their physical chemistry that made them more oriented to help others.
Yeah.
So there's this amazing thing that when you spend time in nature, what happens to you physically and with your brain chemistry is you're oriented more to be of service to others.
I observed this today precisely with 20 people because we are talking about being one with nature.
Okay.
And the awe and wonder and the beauty that comes with that is actually a way that opens yourself to others as well, not just nature. So it's like a door that you open up. Thank you so much.
You see, Gloria, you see what you brought together, Gloria? There's synchronicity alive and well within this call, because I am doing exactly what Elaine's doing at the moment. I'm designing programs to take people into nature to enable them to be better in their own well-being, but actually better at serving other people. So you're designing a program, Elaine. Are you on that, or?
Yeah, I'm leading it. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. For
Wonderful. Write to me about that, Elaine. I'd love to hear what you're doing.
Great.
Yes, I'd like to know too, Alan. I didn't know that you were doing that. So please let me know.
I will.
That'd be
Tell me a
fantastic,
little bit
Elaine.
about it.
Thank you. Thank you.
The other thing is scientific research has shown that giving to others produces endorphins in the brain
Yes.
and
Yes.
lights up the pleasure centers in the brain. So the other thing I wanted to share, just because I thought it was so kind of cute, you mentioned the importance of having an open mindset, and Alain mentioned it too, that there's always help at hand when somewhere in our environment, and how that open mindset attracts synchronicity. And it made me think of Swami Satchidananda when he was planning a large project, some kind of really big project, and someone asked him, but Swamiji, where will all the money come from? And he said, from wherever it is now. I love that answer.
The other thing it reminds me of, Elaine, is related to that and related to what you said, Gloria. I've written in the book about knocking on the head this whole notion of survival of the fittest.
Yes.
There's a lot of research now that says that's not what happened with humankind. Actually, we survived because we learned to work together in groups to help each other. So the better terminology is survival of the kindest.
Yeah.
And this is how mindsets influence us, because all of us know, business is about cutthroat survival of the fittest. And so when we go into organizations, we're very much competitive and how to be better than the other person, because we wrongly believe from Darwin, survival of the fittest is how we grow and develop. But we now know the reality was humankind survived by helping each other in small groups. So we better live by survival of the kindest, not survival of the fittest.
Yes, it was the evolutionary leaps that we've made have always been a result. They may have been triggered by competition, but they were a result of cooperation.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So that's good.
That's
Ja-
just
Janet,
another way of saying the same thing.
I think so, Gloria. Janet
Janet?
raised her hand.
Well, you were just talking about being in nature.
Uh-huh.
Synchronicities, my whole life has been that way. And at one point, I had wanted to do, I just was real curious about Native Americans, and I
Okay.
wanted to learn more. And so somehow there was a man that was doing sweats that was in the Lincoln State Penitentiary. And somehow, I don't remember how I did it, but I was able to get him to come to our home and do a pipe ceremony. From that point, what they consider spirit brought more and more Native people into my life, teachers that had lost their voice. Oh my gosh, I had so many mystical experiences with these people. They are so connected to nature. If they've not lost their roots and they have their understandings that they've had forever, when you're around them, every time I did ceremony with or sweat or anything, I actually had things appear, like I did a workshop with Sun Bear, who's now in the non-physical, and he was teaching us about doing medicine wheel. And this was down in Council Groves, Kansas. It's
Okay.
When I got there, it was a major, I could feel energy coming up my legs.
Yeah.
It's a very major, I don't know what causes that, but it was fall and the grass was very tall. And so, and I lived on an acreage, I had horses. But they had mowed a path out for the city folks to the sweat lodges. But I thought, and then he said, when we build the medicine wheel, that if you go into nature, I'm going to have you go out into nature, something will stop you dead in your tracks. And I thought, well, it must be that big stone that was in the sweat this morning. That's because I was representing Bear. And it was like, that's got to be that big stone that last, So I didn't want to get my stone. So I cut down through this little ravine direct to go to the sweats, because I'm a country girl, I could do that. And something stopped me dead in my tracks. And I turned around and looked. I thought, what? And I looked down, and here's this little nondescript rock, half covered in dirt. And I thought, here's my white brain. That cannot be the bear. The bear is the big rock that's in the sweat. So I started walking away, but I got this feeling, if you don't pick that up, you will regret it the rest of your life. And so I went back and I dug the rock out, and guess what it's shaped like? A bear. That I've just had one thing after another, and it gives you such an uplift. You almost don't come back. You don't come back down.
No, there are many things in what you said, Janet, which are so good and so true. All of the indigenous peoples in all countries believe and understand synchronicity through their connection with the natural world. Yes. And so the natural world, I'm sure, Alan, you know this. What I always do in my team and leadership seminars, if I can, is get people to be clear about the question they want to ask in their business or life. I then send them for 2 hours silent meditative walking. And I tell them just to notice whatever comes their way and bring that back and share with us the answer that it gave them to the question that they raised. So this doesn't, by the way, only happen when you're in nature. I live in a city. We all live in cities at some level, I'm sure, or go to cities. You can find answers everywhere. If you get clear on your question and walk out into your environment will give you an answer. Karen.
Yeah, sorry, just want to quickly ask Janet, would you be able to clarify what was the name of the person, the teacher, the man, the Native American man? I couldn't hear. I wanted to ask. What was his name?
He was a Chippewa. His name was Sun Bear.
Sun Bear.
Isn't that interesting? His name was Sun Bear, but amazing teacher, just amazing.
Yeah.
And I just so much enjoyed learning from all of them. And then from there on, Spirit just kept sending them into my life. Navajo.
And where was it? Where did you go? Where was it? Where were they based?
Council Grove, Kansas.
Council Grove, Kansas.
It's a very powerful spot.
Sorry, what was it? Council Grove, Kansas. Council Grove, Kansas.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome.
Jane, do you have a question, Jane?
Jane does not have a question, but
okay. I just had this sense that you wanted to. I had this sense that you wanted to say something.
No, I am.
Okay.
No, I appreciate it though. Thank you.
I just thought you had a question.
I wanted to just interject that in indigenous traditions, the bear is the healer, represents the healer.
And it's definitely my totem. I mean, and when he asked us when we're going to be building the medicine wheel, he said, when he called out the name of an animal to raise our hand, and boy, it hit me when he said bear, and I couldn't help but raise my hand. Okay. And so bear has been with me, but lately I had a meditation where also a leopard joined.
Mm.
And that came from Ptah.
Okay, cool.
It's amazing. It's just amazing when you learn to meditate and watch the movie in your head, is what I call it. And it's just life just becomes so much more interesting. People that watch television, they don't know what they're missing.
Any more questions, Gloria? Any more questions, Gloria?
Alana has a question.
Yes, well, it's a question. Yes and no. I noticed that number 8 is merged with present moment, and for me, I don't know whether you're familiar with the theory U.
Yes, I use theory U all the time. I use theory U for many years.
And so what you do at the bottom,
Elaine, can you explain to everybody else theory U?
Theory U was clarified by Otto Schalmer and some of his colleagues, Jaworski and Peter Senge, by saying that all the people who have invented great things or discovered new theories actually go through 3 phases: observe, observe, observe. So, and to let go of whatever assumptions they have, and then they go to the bottom of the U, and it's easier if you do that in nature, as you said, Philip, and suspend suspend one's adjustment and one's assumption, and to actually let go of whatever is not necessary at this time. Be in the present moment, and that's the way to let come what could come. So I was touched when you said that your key 8 was about that. I mean, that's the way I read it, is that there is a capacity to not be encumbered by all the assumptions, the past experience we've had, and to be fully present, to merge with reality in a way. And if you merge in reality, as I think that's what you meant, then you are opening to what could come.
Yes,
you are unencumbered by your past.
Absolutely. Theory U, thank you so much for sharing that, Ellen. If you don't know Theory U, just Google Theory U, and it's a beautiful focus of you begin the top left-hand side with all that you know, you let go of all that you know till you get to the bottom. And the bottom is listening.
Listening, opening up. Yeah.
And then the answer comes, and then you go and act. So you come, it's called Theory U because you begin knowing, get to the bottom of the U and you don't know, and then you emerge.
No, I was
Alan,
not complete.
please. Oh,
And it's just a minute. And it's so what I didn't say is going up is, as you say, act in an instant. It's something
Yes.
that's
Yes.
very close to what you describe in synchronicity.
Yes, exactly.
Alan, please could you repeat the names of the people you just mentioned? The name was Otto.
Karen,
Sorry.
if you just Google Theory
okay.
U,
Theory.
Google Theory U, you'll get everything that you
You
need.
got all the names. Okay, all right then. Thank you. Thank you.
Quite a body of work.
Great contribution, Ellen. It's a wonderful instrument, Theory U.
Thank you.
We're coming to the top of the hour, so I'm very glad to stay on. But if all the questions have expired, then over to you, Gloria.
Yeah, one thing that occurred to me as I was reading your book, which, by the way, is very, very interesting, is that one tool that we could use perhaps to make us more aware, because synchronicities can be very small and they can be huge, like the
Yes,
13,000
yes.
right? Sometimes they're very small, but still, when we connect the dots, they're meaningful, right? And one thing that occurred to me that might be helpful to people is keeping a journal of
Yes.
synchronistic occurrences, and then you can every now and then look at them all, and because we forget. I forget.
Let me say more though, Gloria. We can actually do that with this group of people.
Mhm.
So although synchronicities can be very general and see what comes your way, if from this meeting today, you have one clear question. So for Karen, it might be, I'd like to understand whether I should do my PhD. Nothing like just that. For Edna, it might be, I'd like to understand how I use my accommodation. So if all of you have just one clear question, because all of us have got many questions, but if you choose one from today, get clear on it, and then over the next few days, notice what comes your way in answer to that question. Because what happens very often, Gloria, and you really triggered me, Gloria, on this, thank you, was that the research on synchronicity often just gets stuck in, tell me your best story, latest story.
Mm.
And what I'm interested in is synchronicity is a spiritual tool to help us live an abundant life. So I'm interested in getting a structure around it in the sense of saying, yes, watch all the different synchronicities come your way, but use key number 6. Key number 6 is intend with your mind and intend with your heart of something that you want most in your life at the moment. So I would say specifically, I mean, many synchronicities happening to me, many needs that I have, but I would say what I want to know is what is the next step of taking my work on synchronicity so it reaches a bigger audience. And I'd be very focused on that, because the more focused you are, and then watch and keep a diary, Gloria, you're absolutely spot on here, but keep a diary by first of all setting the question. So in your diary, first of all, write whatever question comes to you today, and then just watch what comes your way. See what happens. Sorry to interrupt, Gloria, but I wanted to make that a practical, let's do this now today for people, because it's been a great call, Gloria. I've loved this call probably more than any I've had for a long time.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for joining us today and making the time. Getting up early in the morning to join us. And thank you all who attended for attending, and we'll see you next time. And I hope you'll come back again sometime, Phil.
Can I say, do write to me. First of all, go and see philipmerry.com. It's the first chapter of the book. One L in Philip, by the way. you'll see there one of my pages is the 9 Keys of Synchronicity. And please, if you want any advice or if you've got any stories and you want to correspond with me, my email is also there. So, Gloria, I want to say a big thank you to you. I love small sessions like this. And I love it when I can see people's faces, and we've had a great sharing. I've learnt from all of you specific things. So a big thank you, Gloria, to you for putting this together. Enjoy your evening in the States on a Friday evening. It's now 10 o'clock here in Singapore. I will now go out into the sunshine for breakfast.
One thing.
Yep.
Have another book in the works?
Yes, there is.
Yes, I thought so.
The book is called Team Synchronicity.
Oh,
So remember my freedom fighter focus. I worked with teams in 63 countries. I love working with teams. 9 Keys of Synchronicity is a lot about individuals and how you access synchronicity. But what I'm now doing is bringing it to corporations. And so Team Synchronicity is the title of my next book.
Okay.
Team Synchronicity, Creating Quantum Results.
When is it coming out? When is it?
It's half written at the moment, Elaine, so I'm trying to get it done by the end of this year.
Well, this has been a wonderful gathering. Oh my goodness. I really enjoyed this.
Yes.
Janet, this is one of the best sessions on synchronicity I've had since doing this. And I want to really thank Gloria and all of you for this. It's wonderful to be in touch with you, especially 91-year-olds who look like they're 61.
It's going to give to us. Thank you.
It has. All right. Enjoy your day, folks. Be in touch. Please write to me.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.